I was like, God, why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to watch literally hundreds of women a year give birth and go through pregnancy? And I don't get to have that. Like, how are you still good to me?
Welcome to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast, where we equip and encourage moms just like you to move from isolation, fear, comparison, and chaos to community, compassion, peace, and freedom. We're so glad you're here. Hey, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Jen, and this is the I Am Mother of the Year podcast.
And October is Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month, and we are going to honor that in the best way that we know how, which is by sharing stories. Mm-hmm. And so this is part 3 of a 4-part series that we are calling Yet We Thrive. And Yet We Thrive is one of our partner ministries, and it's a community that helps support moms who have lost or are struggling to have babies. And their goal is really to live full, thriving lives in the midst of impossible circumstances. And so the story you're about to hear is full of more heartbreak than anyone should ever have to go through, but yet she is full of hope. So welcome, Sherah.
Hi.
Sherah, thank you for being here.
Yes, of course.
Can you tell everyone, us, who is Sherah? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, so I, first of all, am a wife. I've been married to my husband for 11 years now. We met working together at McDonald's in high school.
Yes, girl.
So, your classic love story.
He said, "You want some fries?"
Exactly. But yeah, so we started working together when I was 16 and he was 18, and we knew each other for about a year before we started dating, but he tells everybody that he knew, even before he asked me on our first date, that he was going to marry me.
Oh my God.
Took him a lot of time to convince me of that, but here we are. And yeah, we got married in 2009, and I was in nursing school at the time. And so I finished nursing school in 2011, started working as a labor and delivery nurse, but knew from the time I was a little girl that I wanted to be a midwife. Mm-hmm. So I have 9 siblings. I am third out of the 10 kids, and so I was around during a lot of my mom's pregnancies, and I just loved the idea of being able to be there when she gave birth. And so as soon as I knew what it was, I would be like, "Mom, I want to be there. Can I come when you have a baby?" And she was like, "No, this is something really private." She and my dad did unassisted home birth, so it was just the two of them. Like, they did all of it themselves. And so to add somebody into that process for them just was not something they wanted.
Well, go babysit your siblings.
Right.
Go make them some dinner.
Thankfully, my mom had super fast labors and usually delivered in the middle of the night. So they usually would just get things done, have the baby, come and wake us up, and we'd go and meet the baby. That's kind of how it worked. Like,
go to bed, wake up with the baby.
Exactly. There's mom with a new baby.
Wow.
But with my youngest sister, so I was 12, and it was pretty close to when I was getting ready to turn 13, like a month before. And my mom was 44, so she was a little more high risk. She'd had gestational diabetes and was on insulin. And so they had kind of had a backup plan that, if this labor isn't going really smoothly, we're going to go to the hospital. Well, that morning my mom's water broke, and then 12 hours later she still wasn't in labor. And so they decided to go to the hospital, and they were like, "Hey, since we're going to the hospital, do you want to come with us?" I was like, "Do I want to come with you?
This is going to be my career."
Yes. I'm already there. So I got to be there, and it was such an amazing thing to see. I was hooked from the second that baby came out. I was like, "This is amazing. Can I please be part of this for the rest of my life?"
12 years old.
Yeah. So I feel really blessed because I feel like there's so many people that have no idea what they want to do, even when they're like in their 30s. And I just have known since then, like, this is what God made me to do. This is my calling. Because just the way that midwives see birth and labor and pregnancy and all of that is just a normal part of a woman's life. It's not this big, scary, high risk thing. It's your body was created to do this. The process works right most of the time, obviously not all the time, and I see that, but that's when I have my colleagues that can step in and take over. So I started out as, doing nursing, worked as a labor and delivery nurse through grad school, and then probably about halfway through grad school, Zach and I were like, okay, I think it's time. So I'd had an IUD in because I didn't want to get pregnant in nursing school. It was like the last thing I wanted. And so when the 5 years came up to get that out. I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's have a baby. So we got it out, and I remember specifically that day, and I always cry when I think about it because there was so much anticipation that day. So Zach came with me to my appointment, but he sat out in the car because, he was like, I'm not going in there. And I came back out to the car, and I was like, okay, it's out. And we went to lunch, and we sat across the table, and we looked at each other, and we said, this time next year, we could have a baby. And so that, that was such an exciting time. I was like, my mom got pregnant on her honeymoon. I'm going to have a baby. Like, I'm going to be pregnant as soon as, this thing wears off.
Fertile Myrtle, you're like,
I know, that's why, like, and I was just like, this is what I'm going to be. Yeah. And so, it took 6 weeks to get my period back, and I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, I didn't have a period for 4 years with the IUD. I was like, this is just what my body's doing.
And it's amazing. That sounds awesome.
It was great. I can't say that I missed that part of it.
Oh, save so much money on tampons. Are you kidding me?
So, but yeah, that 6 weeks went by. I started my period, and we just started right away, like timing everything. Let's do this. And I had really regular periods, so we thought, okay, this is fine. It's gonna happen. I was in the middle of grad school. I was working full-time night shift. I was going to school full-time. I was really, really under a lot of stress. And so we just were like, okay, this is probably what's going on. I'm stressed out. My body's not prepared for a pregnancy. So we'll just, wait until I get done with school. So I graduated in 2014. And at that point, we had been trying almost 2 years. And I just remember specifically, so our 5th wedding anniversary, we went to the Dominican Republic, and it timed out just perfectly when I would have been ovulating. And it was like going to be, this whole, you build up these romantic stories that you got pregnant on the beach. Not really. We didn't do that on the beach, but... But you get pregnant in this romantic atmosphere or whatever. And I just remember coming home from that and just being crushed when I started my period. And at that time, there was a lot of signs of endometriosis that I didn't think about. I just kept passing it off like, oh, my periods are they just kind of suck. Yeah. They're painful. Yeah. But everybody's periods are painful. You even in school, you learn that, like, periods are painful. Yeah. But I didn't realize that my periods were so much more painful because I just was like, I'm just toughing it out. It's fine.
Perception's your reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like, it's very normal to feel like you're being twisted from the inside out. It's fine. And so I remember even one thing. Yeah.
I know it's not.
No.
So if you're
no.
sick, now call your doctor.
Yeah. If there is someone with a vice grip in your uterus, you should go to your doctor. But it's another thing. It's very hard. And even then, like, we've come a long way in obstetrics, even just in the last few years of identifying it. But I talked to my doctor about it, and she was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, just keep going through it. Take ibuprofen. You'll be fine. Well, then I remember one Sunday sitting across the table from Zach. We had gone out to eat lunch after church, and I started my period like the day before, and always like those first couple of days was really hard. And I remember just sitting and crying because I was cramping so hard, and I wanted to enjoy the time with my husband, and I wanted to be present with him. But that was getting where we were right around the year mark, and that's where infertility is diagnosed. Like, if you've been trying for a year, that's infertility. And so up until then, I could just be like, oh, it's just stress. Mm-hmm. But then that year hit, and I remember sitting across from the table and just crying, and him being like, what? Why are you crying? Like, we're at we're at lunch enjoying a steak. I think we were having steak that day. I know. Yeah. What's going on here? Are you hormonal? And I was just like, I just don't understand. Like, everybody around me is getting pregnant, and I'm working as a labor and delivery nurse at that time, helping babies come into the world every single time I'm at work. And so, it just started at that point, just kind of the reality hitting me. Well, then when I graduated from midwifery school, after I finished with that, we decided we were going to go on a grand adventure. And so we went travel nursing for 9 months. Yeah. We spent a couple months in Texas, and we spent a few months in Seattle, and we just lived it up. We didn't have kids. We were free to go. We would just take off for the weekend when I had a few days off work, and we would go explore where we were because it was a new place. Lots of fun things to do. And so we just had fun. But in the midst of all of that fun was every single month this just gut-wrenching, like, it didn't happen again.
Yeah,
And
literally, because mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
but then physically,
yeah.
pain.
Yeah, I mean, my periods were getting more and more painful throughout that time. And I just kept passing it off as like, this is normal. But, I think because I had the IUD and I didn't have periods for 4 years, I think the endometriosis didn't get as bad as it could have, because endometriosis builds up because when you have your period, instead of all of it flushing out, some of it flips through your tubes and goes and implants in your body and causes inflammation and scarring and pain. And so because I wasn't having periods, and I got it in when I was 19. Like, we were getting ready to get married. I was so young. Like, my periods weren't even regular yet. Yeah. And so I think that because of that, it delayed the symptoms of it. And I think that's why it took so long to be diagnosed.
Can I pause you in your story and ask, so at this point, do you have the infertility label?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did that change, like, how did that change your perspective? Because it must have.
Yeah.
So how does it change? Now you're labeled. You have stamp on your forehead in your medical chart.
Yeah.
I'm going through infertility. Do you ever say, I am infertile?
I do sometimes. I try not to, because I don't want that to be my identity.
Right.
Because I'm so much more than somebody who can't get pregnant.
Right.
But it was really hard, especially being from such a big family. And I mean, I'm one of the older of my siblings, so they hadn't at that point, nobody else was having children. But, thinking about, well, I'm going to be the one that has the first grandbaby and all of this. And then that excitement just like fades to like, is this ever going to happen for me?
Right.
And you grew up like, you just wake up and there's a new baby in your house.
Exactly.
Like, that's totally your normal. You're thinking,
we're up to 7 today.
yeah.
We went to bed at 6.
Right. Yeah, so that's
honestly, that's
Yeah.
how it went.
Yeah. How's your cereal?
So,
Yeah.
This is your baby
just
brother.
pops up every moment. So
so that's your normal.
It was at that point, like, I started really feeling like something is wrong with me. And so for all of this time, so we didn't end up getting any testing done for the first 3 years, because first of all, I wanted to keep my head in the sand. I didn't want that label. Right. I didn't want to believe that it wasn't just going to magically happen. And I felt like if I have a diagnosis, then that's another label that I have to put on myself. And so, we always just would like, my grandpa is a master herbalist, another fun fact about me. And so he would be like, well, you can try taking these things, these might help. And nothing that I took did anything. And we assumed that because my periods were regular, that it was probably okay. Like, there's, because, people think PCOS, you have irregular periods. I wasn't even thinking endometriosis at that point, because I was like, these periods are painful, but whatever. And so I just kept thinking, well, maybe there's something else. And so...
Can you tell me what PCOS stands for?
yeah, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, yeah,
Where you
basically...
get
So is that the umbrella label, and then you get cysts? That's just one thing, you get cysts. Is
Yeah,
that
so
separate from
that's
endometriosis?
Yes, they're two separate.
Got it.
I got lucky. I get to have both of them.
Oh,
So yeah,
the
so
gift that keeps
I
on
know.
giving.
But yeah, so they do for some people happen at the same time, but they are two separate diseases. They're both chronic progressive diseases. So the older I get, the less fertile I'm going to get. That's just how it is.
Lovely.
So yeah, I know it's great to think about. But we started testing when I got back here. So I got my job as a midwife, and I started working. And when we got our insurance, I was like, let's go get tested. So I went to my doctor. We did a bunch of blood work. Everything looked fine. I was like, okay.
Great.
She was like, well, you've been trying for 3 years now. Let's also test your husband. So, we were like, okay, sure, fine. Semen analysis are one of the most awkward things. We'll just put it that way. Having to collect that.
Is it really like, go to this room and there's some magazines? Like, that's my experience with it, because that happens on TV.
Yes. So, and it can be that way, but because we want to honor the Lord in the way that we do that, there is no pornography involved. Yeah. So, I help.
Nice.
Okay.
Tell me more about that.
So, but it's
It involves less clothing than normal.
yes. But it's not like you're having this like
You cannot,
fun, joyful.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's get frisky.
Let's get awkward. It's a dry hand job. You can't use lubricant. You can't use saliva. There can be nothing on it except just the the sperm.
The golden anatomy.
Yes, it's
that
great.
is-
Let me tell you. So we started with that, and so my doctor, it's so weird working in an office where your doctor is literally like across the hall. Like I remember she printed out his results, walked into the office, and set them down on my desk and said, "Okay, I think we figured it out." And I
You're
was
like, can you mail this to me? Because I'm your patient. Put it in my chart.
So anyway, I'm in the middle of seeing patients. I have patients before and after this. So I get out and we talk, and she says, okay, so this is what we've got. His sperm count is really low. The motility is really bad. So basically there's not enough sperm and they're not moving anywhere. So no wonder you haven't gotten pregnant.
Right.
Was there any relief?
So-
Like, oh, it might not be me.
I felt horrible, but yes, I was like, it's his fault.
Right.
Like,
Now I don't
like
take
I'm
this
not,
burden
this
off
means that I'm not broken as a woman. Like my husband just is shooting blanks, you know? And so, but then my second thought was like, oh my gosh, like that is something as a man too. Like that's part of his identity. That's, I'm going to have to take away when I give him this phone call.
Right.
And so so she left and I just shut the door and I just cried for a little while because I was like, okay, so we've got an answer. I don't like it. This is going to hurt. But there's something.
Yeah.
There's at least some possibility of hope. And so I called him and I told him, and I just remember how crushed he sounded. And I just felt so awful because, you know, until then I'd been carrying that burden. And, you know, we talked about it together, but there's just something about that understanding that comes when it's not just your fault. And so they were like, okay, but this is a good thing. This means that we can do something. And so, you know, because of my upbringing, I've always been one that wants to take the natural way of things. I want to take it as much as I can with, you know, without using medical intervention. But at that point it was like, we got to do something.
Have a baby.
Yeah.
The herbs aren't working, Grandpa. Thank you, but
And you know, for some people they do. Some people they do, but when you're facing what we were facing, it doesn't. And so we had him see a urologist, found out pretty quickly after that he has something called Varicoceles. So if you've heard of like hemorrhoids or varicose veins, it's the same concept. It's just in his scrotum. So it brings a lot of heat, which is not good for sperm. They're little like wimpy babies, and they don't do well with temperature changes. Exactly. That's why they are hanging outside of the body, because they need to be cooler. And so
they're tentacles to my 6-year-old son.
tentacles.
Not testicles.
All right, so
Tentacles.
his tentacles were too high. If you know what I mean.
Really? Yes.
So that August he had surgery, and we were like, they closed 15 blood vessels that were dilated. That's a lot of blood vessels.
Whoa.
So we were like, this is great. And over the next 3 months, his sperm counts doubled. The motility got better, but then we still weren't getting pregnant. So of course, me being stubborn, I waited for a whole nother, like almost another year. And so we found out about his issue in March. Well, the next March, I was finally like, well, I tried to in December. That's a very long story, but I tried to get an appointment in December, but it ended up being in March with a doctor, an infertility specialist. And I still remember him walking in the room and being like, do you want to just do IVF? And I was like, no, that is not even on my radar right now. Like, that I don't want to do that. And I told him that.
You're thinking there's so many options.
I know. I'm like,
before
there's
then.
so many things we can do. And so he was like, well, let's try first just doing some medicated cycles with intrauterine inseminations. So I remember the first one going up to it. I took Clomid, and we did ultrasounds, and I had these beautiful follicles. We were like, these are going to be babies. You know, I can see them right there on the ultrasound. I still have pictures of them. And then we went in and did the first IUI. I had to do a trigger shot like a couple days before, whatever. And they were like, you know, things look okay. The motility is not great, but we're putting the sperm right there. Because so with an IUI, they put a tube all the way up to the top of your uterus.
It's the turkey baster, right?
Yeah, except with a turkey baster, you just put it in the vagina. It goes all the way through your cervix to the top of your uterus. So it's all the way in there. It's not fun. It doesn't feel nice. But anyway, they did that. They're like, we're putting it right there. So they don't have to go very far. So we're like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
So first month, I delivered a baby, and I walked out of the room, went to the bathroom, and started bleeding. And
Oh, you delivered.
I was like, I was at work. Sorry, I was at work and I delivered a baby. And I came in to the bathroom and started bleeding, and I just lost it. I was like, I just can't. How do I go back in this room and talk to this woman and tell her you're amazing and you did a good job and congratulations on your baby, when I'm like literally bleeding $700 into the toilet, and just like, I was so crushed. And so I finished out that call shift. I was so thankful I was off the next day, because I had just started like just barely spotting. But then the next day I just laid in bed all day and I just cried, and I didn't do anything. I didn't talk to anybody. But then, so that was a Wednesday, and then Thursday I laid in bed all day, and then Friday I had to go back. I had a full office schedule. I had to see, I think it was 18 patients that day.
Oh my gosh.
Could there be a worse job for what you're going through? You know, like...
So literally, as I'm still bleeding, I'm sitting there, you know, measuring bellies, feeling babies move, checking heartbeats, reassuring moms, like doing all of these things that I just had to like plug through and do it. As I'm like, every time I go to the bathroom, it's just like another stab in my heart. And I remember walking in and sitting down at my desk and just crying. And, you know, I had told a couple of my coworkers, and they just came in and they were like, you are amazing. You can do this. You're strong enough. Like, let's get through this. And they just helped me so much through that day. And then, so, you know, we did 2 more that year. I took a break for that first month because you can do 3 months in a row. And I was like, I can't do this. So we did March, and then we did, it was the beginning of March, and then we did at the end of April, and then in May. And I remember the second one, they were like, things don't look so good. His sperm don't look very good. So if you want to still do it, we'll still do it. And I'm like, well, we're here. I've already taken the medicines. I've already shot drugs into my body. We might as well.
You just never know.
But yeah. And so that was like where I was like, well, maybe this is God's redemption story. You know, it's like they told us it wasn't going to happen. They told us that it wasn't going to work. They told us that this is the chances, that the chances are low that this is going to even work. And I was like, maybe this is it.
We're going to defy the odds. Exactly. My God is bigger.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I felt for that 2-week wait. And then again, I started my period, and again, I was crushed. We did it the 3rd time that year, and after the 3rd one, I was like, I cannot do this for a while. I just need some time.
Yeah. So how does your prayer life, your faith, change from round 1 through round 3?
Yeah.
And then just totally giving up. Like, what stories are you telling yourself, and what are the conversations that you're having with God like?
Yeah. So obviously at the first ones, it's like, God, you are so amazing. I'm so excited for what you're going to do. This is going to be great. I can't wait to see. And I remember like thinking about, this is how I'm going to glorify you through this. Like, I'm going to be able to say, we struggled, but we made it. Yes. Like, here's this baby, but God, exactly. Yeah. And by the end of it, I was just like, I was really struggling to say God is good. Because, you think about the blessings that God promises for his people. And one of those is that there will be no infertility and there will be no miscarriage for those that love God. And so I was like, God, why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to watch literally hundreds of women a year give birth and go through pregnancy? And I don't get to have that. Like, how are you still good to me? And he has showed up in so many ways of people just pouring into me. I have patients that will bring me little gifts and say, we're thinking about you. We love you. We want this for you so bad. So many really awesome friends that have just pulled up alongside me and held me up. Because there's been some times that it's been really hard to stand. But yeah, just worshiping him even though. I'm on the worship team at our church, and I've had several people that know my story say, it blesses us so much to see you worshiping God, because we know how hard it is to praise through that. And so knowing that I'm able to bless other people, even though I'm hurting. Let's not get that wrong. I'm not like some, beautiful flower blooming all the time.
I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah. Like, I'm not on the other side.
You're not a robot either. You're
exactly.
feeling all of these things, living them. And then, do you feel like it's? Do you feel like it's the cruelest joke that God called you at age 12, like without a doubt, opened your eyes?
I have no questions still.
Like, yes, your imagination. Is that the cruelest joke?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of weird, vindictive God would give you this amazing calling to bring life into this world and then not give you life of your own?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I stand by the bedside of a woman who is either laboring to have her baby or doing their first heartbeat check where they're so excited. And I just think, is it ever going to be me? You know, how many babies do I have to deliver for somebody else before I get to pull my own baby up to my chest and hold them? And it's a really, really hard place to be. And I love my job. I love caring for women. I absolutely 100% know that God created me to do that. And I know by the testimonies of my patients and how I have been able to care for them that I was 100% made to be a midwife. But it is crushing sometimes.
It's like for them, it has to be you.
Yeah.
You know, you are such a huge part of so many birth stories, so many women like relying on you and your vulnerability and like everything you bring into the room when you walk into the room.
Yeah, and it's the sweetest burden. So it's so hard, but it is so amazing. There's just nothing like being there when a child takes the first breath of air this side of, you know. It is truly amazing, and it does give me hope because I see women who are in their 40s. I've delivered babies for women who are in their 40s the first time that they've been able to get pregnant at 40 or 41. And so I think I still have time.
How old are you?
I'm 32. I've been trying since I was 24.
Okay.
So
lots of time.
yeah,
32,
I'm like,
little spring chicken.
My mom had babies until she was 44.
Seriously?
I still have 12 years left in this process.
Girl.
Yeah.
So I do get hope through my job as well. It's not all life sucking.
Yeah.
There's so much of
Yes.
it that's not, but
Yes.
just, you know, there's challenges, obviously.
How many babies have you delivered?
So I think I delivered 2 on Monday morning. So
No big deal. I went to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I did a water birth the other day. But yeah, so I think I'm at 375 or something like that. So I'm getting pretty close to 400 babies delivered. And that's just the ones that have come into my hands. I have been there for probably close to 1,000 births at this point. So,
How many people have you walked the infertility journey with? Like patients of yours that you?
I don't know. It's been a lot. You know, I can think of like probably 5 or 6 just off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's been more than that. But you know, it's one of those things that before I started dealing with this, and I wasn't in the role of a provider at that point. I was just a labor and delivery nurse. Not just, it's a very important job, but I wasn't the one making like health decisions for somebody. But you know, through walking this journey, I have found such a level of compassion for them. And honestly, like, it's hard for me not to just like cry in my office when somebody's sharing their story with me, because I know on way more than just an intellectual level what it feels like every month to have hope rise so high. I mean, I plan a pregnancy announcement every month, and then every month I have to let that go.
Wow.
And I have to
So you still do, and it's been how many years? 8 years?
Yeah, it'll be so 7.5. Okay. So February was 7 years. So almost 8 years, I guess, at this point. But even this past month, like, you know, my husband's birthday's coming up, and I was like, if I get pregnant, how fun would that be to tell him on his birthday that he's finally gonna be a dad? And you know, it's like every time I'm like, well, why do I do this to myself? Why do I let myself feel that hope? Because it's crushing when that hope gets dashed. You know, there's the Bible verse that talks about hope deferred makes the heart sick. I'm like, how many times does my hope have to be deferred before the sickness takes over? Because it's very difficult, but that hope is just, it's persistent, dang it. It just keeps coming no matter what. And that's like, one of the things that's really hard about having PCOS is that many of the symptoms of PCOS mock the symptoms of pregnancy.
Which is a cruel joke.
So my boobs get really sore every month. I get nauseous every month. I get like fatigue when I'm getting close to my period, like so many symptoms that you're like, oh, this is definitely pregnancy. Yeah. And then every time because it switches up all the time. And so every time it's a little different, I'm like, maybe this is the time. Yeah. Maybe this is it. And I get so excited. And then the period comes and then it's just like, well, there we go. So
what do women need to know? What do moms need to know, I guess, for like, because I can't even, I remember when you had your miscarriage, like I did not know what to do. I didn't know what to say. Like I didn't know anything about that. Yeah. But I can imagine like, I'm pregnant. Can I tell you? How do I tell you?
Yes.
Like, yeah. What do I say? What do I not say?
What should I keep in mind? What should I be really sensitive to?
Yes, coach us, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have one of my dearest friends from college has had 4 children in the time that I've been trying to have a baby, and she is still one of my dearest friends. And we have talked about this a lot of like how, you know, do you want me to just tell you? And I'm like, yes, I want to celebrate with you. Life is precious, no matter what. And I will probably cry in my bedroom with my husband the night after you tell me, because that's happened many times. Yeah. But that doesn't take away the fact that I am so excited that you're having a baby. Yeah. Like, okay. So tell me about it. Yes, I might be hurt. Don't, you know, nobody ever like gloats about being pregnant, and it's totally fine to be excited. It's absolutely something to be excited about. So, you know, I don't want my pain to ever reduce somebody else's joy. That's not my place as a woman.
Whoa.
Women need to lift each other up.
We need to say that again. Say it again. And say it into this camera here.
I don't ever want my pain to reduce someone else's joy, because joy is so precious and life is so precious. And it doesn't matter that I'm in pain. God blessed you with life, and that should always be a celebration.
Yeah,
and
it does
even
matter.
If it does, that little green, angry, jealous part in the deep parts of my soul will crop up, but that is not your fault.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it does matter that you're in pain.
Yeah. And
it does matter, but it shouldn't stop us from like celebrating with you, inviting you into our lives.
Exactly.
Sharing our children with you.
I feel left out when I have somebody that's like, I didn't want to tell you that I was pregnant. And I'm like, what?
Well, no, I'm doubly hurt.
Right.
But it's gonna be hurt.
But I love you, and I want you to celebrate this. Yeah. And so I'm like, please tell me. And you know, I see a lot of like pregnancy announcements on Facebook, and one of the things that always like puts a little soothing balm on my heart is the ones that have walked through it before with infertility or miscarriage, and they're like, for those of you who are still waiting, for those of you who are still struggling, I see you, and my heart is with you. And I think that part for me is what makes it easier. And so, you know, those kinds of things I think are just what, you know, help me to not feel so left out, I guess.
In a specific way, and then maybe in a general way, like specifically for you in your timeline, what stage are you in? Are you filled with hope right now? So you have PCOS and endometriosis, right?
And male factor infertility.
And he's got,
so
yes.
Got like triple whammy.
3 things, but you're still trying and you're still taking steps to make it happen.
I think at this point in a little bit of a repairing process of like figuring out my identity outside of infertility, because it becomes such a big part of your life. Everything I did for a while was like, is this going to be good if I get pregnant? Literally the clothes I bought. Can I wear this while I'm pregnant? Can I wear this while I'm breastfeeding? Like everything. And so I think I just needed some time to not have that full obsession. So now I'm just like, I still, like I said, still get my hopes up every month because, I'm still like, well, maybe possibly we might have gotten in that window somehow magically. But yeah, so we're just seeing what happens, and then if we do have to have surgery, we're probably just going to both have surgery, and then I'll probably start charting again, and we'll see where it goes.
So there's your specific hope of these are the steps we're taking. What's the general hope to someone who might be in your shoes right now, who's like, I don't have a plan, I'm out of answers. Where is my general hope in this impossible situation?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. I think in general, just there is always hope in Christ. There is always hope. And whether that hope is God will bring a child into my life through someone else, whether that hope is I will, embrace the technology that doctors have and I will be able to get pregnant through that, which is something that I haven't fully embraced yet. So we're not going there, but there are miracles every day. Yeah. There are people that were told, you will never get pregnant, you will never have a baby. There is absolute zero chance that will come into my office and they'll be like, guess what? I am pregnant. I'm having a baby. Yeah. And so there is always, always, always hope. And there are so many stories of that hope out there that you can find them if you need them. Sometimes those are hard because sometimes you're like, but it still isn't me. Yeah. Yeah. But there is always hope in Christ. And if that hope is that God equips you to live a child-free life, that can be hopeful too. Yeah. I mean, Zach and I have done so many things in 7.5 years that we would have not been able to do. Yeah. The travel nursing, we have gone all over the place. We've gone out of the country. We've done so many things. We just pick up and go when we want to. And that's freeing and that's awesome. And it is a gift. And even though that gift comes with some it's like wrapped in some spikes, but it's a gift, And so, there are women that go all of those directions: adoption, foster care, IVF, childlessness. Whatever way there is, God can make that life full and amazing and hopeful and thriving, if we want to use that word, because that's who God is. That's the heart he has for his children. And I think one of the things, like I said, that I've struggled with so much is God still good? And he is still good. And even if I never have a child that comes from my womb, I have been a mother to so many people through my job and just other women that I know that I've been able to come alongside them and say, I'm going to sit with you in this pain and I'm going to be here with you and just give you a safe space. And if that's the mothering that I get to do in my life, I'm blessed to be able to do it because
I just want to bow to her.
I know. Just mic drop all the way. Instead of bow,
not that
we
great.
Can do that. We can do that when we wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, incredible. And what a light. Just, I know you can tell, a huge light. So no matter what impossible circumstances you might find yourself in today, we hope you are still able to say, yet we thrive.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, founder of Yet We Thrive, a community for women who have lost or are struggling to have babies. It is our aim to help you thrive, even in the midst of impossible circumstances. You can find us on Facebook or on Instagram at Yet We Thrive. We look so forward to connecting with you and holding a place for you and your stories, a place where we can hold you up, even in your darkest moments, and tell you, yet we thrive.
Thanks for listening to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast with Lisa and Jen. If you love what you hear and want insider access to more conversations just like these, exclusive Mother of the Year merch, and access to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast one day early, join the growing community of patrons who support our movement at patreon.com/I Am Mother of the Year. Talk to you next week.